Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another special episode of Spectrum with Zaki Khalid. It's a pleasure to be joined by Mr. Umer Karim, who is a visiting fellow at the UK based Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, where he focuses on Pakistan's evolving political and security environment within its neighborhood. He is also a doctoral researcher at the Department of Political Science and International Studies at the University of Birmingham. His academic research focuses on Saudi Arabian foreign policy and politics, in particular Saudi Iran regional rivalry and the broader geopolitics of the Middle East. Mr. Romer, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to join this program.
So, before we proceed into the specifics, if you can tell us very broadly, with the visit of Prime Minister Imran Khan to Saudi Arabia, do you think this latest engagement between both sides can translate into renewed strategic alignment between Riyadh and Islamabad? Or do you think that the scope of this partnership will remain limited in the foreseeable future?
I think this is a very positive development because both sides, the Saudi side and Pakistani side, and their respective leaderships, they had not really communicated for more than a year. Prime Minister Imran Khan specifically had no communication with the Saudi leadership since 2019 December, I think. General Bajwa, the army chief of Pakistan, he had a trip to Saudi Arabia in last year. I think it was in August or July. But even
Yes.
then, in that trip, he was unable to meet the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who is, you can say, the de facto voice or de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia, and specifically when it comes to Saudi foreign policy, he's the person who is the major person in control. So that was a big problem that Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, they had a very strong traditional relationship, and one which was a multifaceted relationship, including security, political, and economic ties. So this sort of a disconnect between the two countries, it wasn't really good from any point of view, but it was specifically not good for Pakistan because Pakistan remains dependent upon Saudi Arabia due to multiple factors, specifically in the economic domain, Saudi foreign direct investment, as well as the remittances which are sent by Pakistani expatriates who are working within Saudi Arabia. They play a large role in pushing at least stabilizing our economy in every difficult time period. So that's why this, you can say, gap, communication gap, or you can say um, trust gap, that was really problematic. And this trip by Imran Khan and also by Chief of Army Staff General Bajwa, it shows that both sides are ready to talk with each other and talk in a frank manner. And the Saudi leadership is definitely willing to talk with Prime Minister Imran Khan. There was a sort of a misconception that the Saudi leadership is not now willing anymore to engage with Imran Khan. So that misconception, you can say, is has been dispelled now, and also it comes as quite a boost for Imran Khan for multiple reasons, because in the last year there was a lot of commentary which was which was basically not really grounded in anything or any logic, that the Saudi leadership, they are providing support or some sort of backing to PMLN leadership due to their traditional linkages with the Nawaz Sharif family, and they probably would back them in order to oust Imran Khan. You can see as the PDM movement also gathered some pace. So all these things were linked up to Saudi Arabia as well by prominent bloggers, YouTubers, and media persons, specifically pro-government media persons within Pakistan. And I think the most they can come with as sort of like evidence for that, or you can say in support of this theory, was a meeting of Hassan Iqbal with the former Saudi intelligence chief, Prince Turki Al Faisal, in Riyadh. I mean, I am a fellow at the King Faisal Center, and I can understand this is just a normal meeting. And Prince Turki is, I mean, he's a very respected person, but he definitely is not very much into the park corridors. And also, the Saudis have so many issues of their own. Why would they be interested in whatever is happening in Pakistan, or why would they be obsessed? That Pakistan is not among top 10 of Saudi concerns, or even top 20 of Saudi concerns. Their concerns are quite different. So that's why all that you can say that atmosphere of possible Saudi inclination towards the opposition, that was quite that didn't make much sense. And I think by this visit, it is quite clear that there was not any such sort of thing. And Prime Minister Imran Khan was received at the highest level by the Saudi leadership. His tour had a lot of prestige.
Speaking of prestige and the warm welcome given by the hosts, after the Prime Minister's touchdown in Jeddah, both sides decided to form a quote unquote Supreme Coordination Council for improved coordination. The first question, what exactly is this Coordination Council, and was such a mechanism not in existence before this?
Yeah, this is actually a very good question because when the Crown Prince visited Pakistan in 2018, 2019 February, they did create a similar working body to coordinate the relationship in a much more institutionalized manner. So there can be working. So the idea of the Supreme Coordination Council was that there can be a working body that can help both sides to facilitate their bilateral engagement in a more institutionalized manner, and which doesn't really need the special push from the leadership itself. So this was the idea of the Supreme Coordination Council. Of course, it involved this happened because there was special interest by the leaderships of both sides, and there was special chemistry between Pakistani Prime Minister and the Saudi Crown Prince. But then, because of certain events and developments, it didn't really work out. So now, what they did is that basically, as some commentators and specifically former Saudi ambassador in Pakistan, Dr. Ali Awad Al Asiri, he has also commented that both sides are going back towards the situation which was there at the time of Crown Prince's visit to Pakistan. So one thing was to create this Supreme Coordination Council. So what does this body? What will it actually do, or what's
Indeed.
its function? To be precise, its function, to be precise, is that ministerial level delegations or policymakers from both sides, they will sit together and then they will work out with each other what are the priorities for each side in a specific sector, and how can the other side help it in that specific sector. So for instance, Pakistan has been pushing Saudi Arabia to invest in the oil and petrochemical sector, and there was a conversation about an oil refinery being set up in Gwadar. So what
Absolutely.
can now happen under the auspices of this coordination council is that the Saudi energy ministry and similar ministerial delegations or officials from the Pakistani side, they can sit together, and then the leadership basically will just okay whatever they come to conclude. So it doesn't need to have, you can say, e, inclusion of the leadership on each and every step. Institutional mechanisms on both sides, or institutional partners from both sides, they can sit together, they can chart out a roadmap, and then the leadership will just give a final, you can say, go ahead. So this was really part of, this was really real function, or you can say purpose of this body. Of course, from Pakistan side, you can say that defense sector is also very important for Saudi Arabia,
Indeed.
and so now you can say that maybe uh, the Saudi Defense Ministry officials, they can sit with specific officials from Pakistan, and General Baiwa doesn't have to really go now and then, again and again, to Saudi Arabia to further clear out the modalities. So this is sort of, you can say, a mechanism to streamline processes and to fast track them. But most importantly, it shows that leaderships on both sides, they understand that each other's respective strategic interests, they are fully, you can say, in a way, in line with each other, and they have trust towards each other for going forward with all such ventures. I mean, again, this is, you can say, this is what the theoretical, you can say, the theoretically inclined function of this body is, because it was formed before, but then it didn't work out because the leadership was not on one page, and there were differences within, specifically within the foreign policy domain. But now I think, because we don't know what has been the conversation between, specifically between the army chief and the Saudi crown prince. So what were some commitments, or what were some, you can say, some of their concerns? How did Pakistani leadership manage to allay them, or how, and what has the Saudi leadership promised in return? We don't really know this, but if this institutional mechanism has been revived, then it means that both sides are willing to move forward on all tracks, or all partnerships that have been discussed or explored before.
You talked of economic cooperation and investments, and obviously, primarily defense and then economy figures in the Pak Saudi bilateral relation. Within this context, last month, actually 2 months ago, Business Today, a prominent newspaper, it reported, and I quote, even as the standoff between India and Saudi Arabia escalates, with the kingdom increasing the crude oil price for Asia and India, cutting imports from Gulf nations, the state-run Saudi Aramco's stake purchase plan in Reliance Limited is unaffected. Aramco is serious about partnering Reliance and the discussions are progressing as expected. Unquote. So obviously there were some elements in the media that were trying to speculate that perhaps the mega deal between Reliance Limited of India and Saudi Aramco, the world's largest oil company, it would be sent to the doldrums. But what is being reported right now is that that deal is going to progress. So when we talk about Pak Saudi relations on one hand and then Pak India relations on the other, do you think that Saudi Arabia is in a position to commit economically and financially to Pakistan as it is toward India?
I think it is very important that, from a Saudi perspective, that we don't really put India and Pakistan into the same box anymore. So we as Pakistanis, we need to accept this reality that India, an Indian market, has is lucrative enough for anyone, not only Saudi Arabia, but any.
And if I
Uh,
may politely, add over here that this question comes in the backdrop of the domestic discourse within the Pakistani public, whose sentiments are actually they come into a factor where they start to doubt Saudi commitment toward Pakistan. That element of trying to create equivalence between their investments in India and Pakistan exists.
Absolutely, I fully agree. If Pakistan had the same industrial infrastructure and you can say a very even a reasonable production industrial production hubs, then Saudi Arabia would have been committing to Pakistan, if not in the same manner, but reasonably as well and much before. But because industry in Pakistan has lagged behind, if we compare it with India to a considerable degree, so we are much more, you can say, uh, our situation vis-a-vis Saudi Arabia as compared to India is not definitely the same. For India, uh, just to start with, there is a market of more than 1 billion people. So, and as we see that now, oil economy or oil-based economies, they will be facing trouble in the next 20 years. Already, the prices are not very high and not the break-even level as Saudi Arabia would have needed. So now a new
Absolutely.
theory which is emerging is that all the big oil producers, they are just going for market share, so they can sell as much as oil they can for the, you can say, the last 10 or 20 years of this oil age which are left. And obviously, for this very reason, India and China would be the biggest market. So they need to be present there structurally in one form or another. So they are not just sellers of petrochemicals to these two markets, but they are also structurally and strategically embedded within these two markets. And I think if the Aramco and Reliance cooperation is viewed from this perspective, it makes perfect sense, perfect business sense. From Pakistani perspective, I think we need to see what Pakistan and Saudi Arabia are doing in a manner that is favorable for Pakistan. Just forget about India for a moment, and we need to see it's always good for Pakistan if Pakistan is getting some foreign direct investment from Saudi Arabia in one sector or another sector, and let's not just compare it with India, because after all we had like a year or so of a really bad dip in the relationship. So if that thing has recovered and the Saudi side are still willing to commit something like for something big, then it's good for Pakistan, because nobody would ignore India right now for the sake of its huge market. But for
Indeed.
Pakistan, I mean, we already know uh, most of the FDI it's coming from China. None of the Western powers, they are really, because of different reasons, they are really interested within Pakistan. So any such, and so we know that other than Saudi Arabia, there are not many such actors with big pockets or deep pockets who are willing or ready to invest. I think this is the right use of deep pockets here, rather than
Agreed.
what was used before. So, for us, in the current situation, I think we should try to approach all this in a positive manner, and we need to stop comparing ourselves with India, because there are multiple issues when we compare ourselves with India, not essentially negative, but also because Pakistan has a very different strength as compared to India. If India has strength, India has also some other, you can say, structural problems and structural issues, which do create hurdles for foreign investors. For example, this Reliance refinery, it was supposed to be built in Maharashtra, I think, and since
Yes.
the relationship between the state government and the central government is not really very good, so already there have been some delays and a lot of political issues with that deal as well, because Reliance, in a way, has become a business front of the Indian government of BJP. So all these issues, they're also there in Pakistan. You can say that some of the projects, they can be kick started much more. You can say in a much more fast manner. If there is will on the Pakistani side, they can say just okay, this is your land. We have allocated it. Nobody would be doing anything to stop you from coming over here and putting your money there. Just come and do it. So we shouldn't actually be comparing both cases, and it's simple market economics which gives us a better explanation. But I also think that on a broader level, India is, you can say, having its the what Pakistan had in 80s. That moment India is having it now because of the Chinese rise, and because of Indians, uh, India being a lucrative strategic partner that can be used by US, but also other Western powers to challenge this Chinese rise, just as Pakistan became. So India has become, you can say, in a way, a frontline state in this new Cold War between the US and China, which obviously Pakistan was in the 1980s in that Cold War between US and Soviet Union. So this is only natural for India to take these advantages, but this it doesn't mean that Pakistan has nothing in its pocket. Pakistan has also a lot of different geostrategic advantages. So for us, what is most important is how to exploit them to maximum without doing silly mistakes.
And speaking of trade and economics, you see that if we subtract India from this discussion once again and focus only on Pak Saudi bilateral relations, the Prime Minister has been repeatedly championing the cause of economic diplomacy. Even our former advisor to the PM on National Security, who's now the NSA himself, Dr. Moeed Yusuf, he mentioned that economic diplomacy will be the pivotal point around which Pakistan will conduct its foreign policy. Trade, economy, energy, these are all good buzzwords that were also mentioned in the joint communique with Saudi Arabia. But there are two things that merit attention if we take a step back. First is that the recent appointment of a retired senior military officer as envoy to Saudi Arabia, number one. And the second is that the statement issued by both sides reaffirmed Pakistan's support for the quote unquote sovereignty and territorial integrity of Saudi Arabia. Now, keeping these two things in perspective, there are some tendencies to speculate that perhaps any renewed commitments will definitely be on purportedly be related to the security or defense front. And that is again going to be the guiding factor. What do you make out of all this?
Again, a very good question. I think one problem of the recent, if you, I mean, this would become a bit lengthy, but I would say that states in the broader Middle East, since the Arab Spring protests or since the change of leaderships, particularly in Saudi Arabia, they have been going a shift in their state identity in a manner, you can say. And other than, I think, right now in Abu Dhabi or Dubai, there most of the leaderships, they're all new. They are all so they are not from the traditional elites or the traditional old family hierarchy. So this is also same in Saudi Arabia. There is a new leadership which thinks that we need to engage with each and every partner in a manner which through which we can accrue most benefits. So it's more sort of a, you can say, what we will do this for you, but what can you do for us? And if you are not doing that for us, then you cannot simply expect us to do all the same for you just in the name of Islamic Ummah or Islamic solidarity or something like that. Like if we expect Saudi Arabia to stand with us against India or Indian actions, particularly in Kashmir, then Saudi Arabia has a valid expectation expectation from our side to stand with them on controversial issues regarding Iran, and particularly also in case of Yemen and whatever happens within Yemen. So, because we now more or less have been projecting a neutral line on all of these issues, so there is, I think, a tendency that we shouldn't really expect something similar. We should expect something similar in return from Saudi Arabia. So, in that relationship of both sides, traditionally the Saudi side was injecting Pakistan with a lot of foreign aid and also oil facilities in different time periods, specifically after the nuclear explosions of Pakistan. Saudi Arabia did the same, and then afterwards in Musharraf time, and then not in the PPP time, but also the PMLN government time. What was Pakistan giving in return? Pakistan was training Saudi forces. Pakistan was deploying troops in Saudi Arabia from time to time, but the troop deployment was not very heavy in the 1990s and 2000 onward. The real problem for Saudi security started when they entered into the Yemen war, and things started escalating in a manner that they had not imagined. And clearly, we can say that the military intervention planned by Saudi Arabia it didn't go as they had planned, and it actually uh, became quite worse for them due to the repeated Houthi drone and missile attacks, which happen all across southern to, you can say, eastern Saudi Arabia from time to time, resulting even in loss of lives, etc. So, what Pakistan, you can say, at this moment, when Saudi Arabia decided to, you can say, support Pakistan with a $6 billion aid package, Pakistan could have given something significant in return on this security situation, or this security front. But Pakistani deployments within Saudi Arabia, they are not of strategic nature. They don't really add up to any sort of Saudi security vis-a-vis Yemen. So, in a manner, there are soldiers there, and there is a considerable number of soldiers there. Probably, still the Pakistani soldiers which are in Saudi Arabia, they are the largest contingent of any foreign force within Saudi Arabia. But they are
Okay.
in different positions in different ministries, as maybe as maybe inducting data, or doing regular office jobs or something like this. But their positioning and their presence in Saudi Arabia is not of strategic nature. Maybe, I mean, again, this is not verified from any source, open or private one, that if these forces are providing special security to the Saudi crown prince or they are acting as personal bodyguard for him. But I don't think so. Even that is happening, because the Egyptians have a broader role now, and also uh, people from what's that firm, Black. Uh, Sorry, I'm forgetting that name. But
Blackwater.
they have Blackwater, exactly. So there have been rumors that they were also hired. So if that has been the case, then we don't see any Pakistani troop presence in any critical areas. So that means that those troops, they are in Saudi Arabia, and they may be in smaller. They may be contributing towards Saudi defense, but in a very insignificant manner, not where they can really tip the balance, or not where their presence can really send a clear message across the Persian Gulf. So, because of this, I think that the fundamental nature of the relationship has changed, because the Saudi side thinks that, okay, we support them economically, and there are roughly 2 million Pakistani expatriates who are also working here. But what do we get in return? Pakistan is not producing anything substantial which can be exported to Saudi Arabia, which can be classified as a critical substance or as a critical utility. So there is essentially a one-way traffic. I mean, of course, Saudi Arabia would not want Pakistan to be in the Iranian camp for obvious reasons, but
Indeed.
there is no strategic parity between the two sides, and I think that's the main problem here.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Umar Karim, it has been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for these very resourceful insights. And I look forward to hosting you in future programs as well. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.